theme tonight is funding your education through the military, and there are a lot of different ways to do that, and you're going to have a lot of presenters, a lot of information thrown at you. Last time there was a lot of information posted in the chat, so keep an eye out for that also. And keep an eye out for future iterations of these college fairs, because there will be other ones focused on other issues and funding your education also. So real quickly, if everybody could just introduce themselves and kind of talk about what you're going to cover down on, and then we'll start out with our Military Service Academy reps.
I'm Alex Stryzek. I'm the scheduler and staff assistant for Congressman Ruiz in the 36th district here, where if you're in Desert Sands, you're in our district, and I'll be talking more about Service Academy opportunities.
My name is Sasha Endeavor. I'm just a local Marine Corps representative, so I'll be answering any kind of enlistment questions that come up, giving some feedback on some enlistment options, trying to keep it generic, not branch specific, so anything that can really help the general military.
Thank you, Sergeant Endeavor.
Hi, I'm Major Janelle West, and I'm an admission liaison officer for the Air Force Academy, but I can also speak to the other service academies as well.
Thank you, Major West.
Hi, how you doing? I'm a Tech Sergeant Kaneda, out here recruiter in Palm Desert. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Community College of the Air Force, a little bit of tuition assistance, and how you can gain, some valuable experience in the Air Force while, chasing your goals and dreams in life.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We've got 3 sessions for you. The first one will give an overview, or I won't, but our speakers will, on the Military Service Academies. Session 2, Sergeant Endeavor will talk about the ROTC and directly to the Navy ROTC. And then session 3 will have both the Marine and Air Force reps talk about what is available to you enlisting straight out of high school. There are a lot of different options out there, and again, it's hard for young people nowadays. I always tell my students, I say, you know what, there are so many choices nowadays that you got to eventually make one, and that's really what the hard part is. So having said that, we'll start out with the Military Service Academies, and Alex, I know you've got a scoot, so we'll let you kick it off for us.
Well, thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Stryker, and thank you, Major West, for being on our panel this year. It's perfect timing to discuss this. If you're a junior or earlier in high school, this is a great time to hear this. Every year we have a nomination process for those that are seniors in high schools or those that are looking to transfer to go to a military service academy. So those service academies include, I'm sorry if you hear my sister's cat, by the way, we're all working from home. This is perfect timing, been quiet all day. So the Air Force Academy, the Military Academy at West Point, the Naval Academy, the Merchant Marine Academy, and then the United States Coast Guard Academy are the 5 different service academies. So for a nomination, the only one you don't really need one for is the Coast Guard Academy, but it still helps. So if you are looking at that, go through our office. But these academies, the perks that most people see is that when you're going there, it's basically like a full ride scholarship, and you are getting salary to serve at the same time as you're getting your education. My cousin's an alumni of the Air Force Academy, and I can tell you that that is not the reason you go. You go to serve your country after you're ready for 5 years of service after at the minimum. And you go to get a very, very, very high degree, because most of these are engineering, most of these are math, science degrees. Not everybody goes just to be a pilot. There's a lot of different careers that you should definitely look at if you're interested. And the process really starts as soon as possible. As soon as you think this is something you want to do, you have to make sure it's something you want to do, because that commitment is everything to this. Because after watching this process this was my 3rd year now, it's a tough process, and you have to be fully committed into getting the grades, getting the test scores, and getting physically fit as well for the challenges that are going to come. And the 4th one that a lot of people forget is the mental strength to do it, because they're going to push. It's going to be a grind, both school, athletically, academically. Everything's going to be very hard, and I've seen people do great with it, and I've seen other people that they weren't fully committed when they applied, and they learned quickly that that wasn't the right fit for them. But through our office, more specifically, what I do, so I don't take too much from Major West, is the congressman is able to nominate a certain amount of people each year for each academy. So basically, if you're interested in going to West Point, you don't only apply for admission to the school, you also apply for a nomination from an elected official. So there's vice president nominees, there's your California senator, and then there's your local congressional representative, which would be us. And it's great to apply to as many nomination places as you can, because you never know which one's gonna come through. And I always encourage, especially if you're still a sophomore or freshman, be looking at every academy to apply to and be ready to, because every year the class is different. You could have the Air Force Academy one year where it may be a little easier to get in based on the other classes. You may have Naval Academy one year where the class isn't as strong and your scores may push you past other people. But the point is that if you really do want to serve, there's a lot of connections between going to the Naval Academy and then becoming a Marine, or going to the Air Force and then going to work for the Navy. That there's a lot of crossover that ends up happening anyway. That if you really do want to serve and you do want to get a really high college degree, you should be looking at all the academies and then limiting from there. But for our nomination process, your senior year, right when you're about to start it in August is when you start getting your packet together for us. You'll send it in to me. You'll work with me. My email's in there. Always feel free to contact me about it. I'm answering these questions a lot, which is good. We're getting more and more and more people every year, and we're getting better and better applications, which is good. It means that the word's getting out how to do it. So I would start now and start looking at what you can do. I wouldn't panic, but if you're a sophomore or a freshman, this is a great time to think, what do I need to do to be in the best position when I finish my junior year? Because once you start your senior year, it is fast. And I know you probably heard it 100 times to enjoy your senior year because it goes fast, but this is the time to really get ahead of it. This is the time to ask us, what have you seen? There's an interview process to the nomination panel. 2 of the panel members for this year are here, so it's a good time to ask too if you're interested. And if you have any other questions, my email's there. I'll be here for a few more minutes too.
Outstanding. Thank you, Alex. Major West, did you want to chime in with anything?
Sure, I'll add a few more things. Alex really brought up a bunch of great points. So I'm glad that he got those out of the way for me. I just wanted to add that I'm a 2003 graduate of Palm Desert High School, and then I graduated from the Air Force Academy in 2007. So it may have been a little while ago, but I am a local kid. So I just wanted to kind of encourage some of you who aren't sure if it's right for you that, I grew up here. And I will say too that to get into a service academy, you do have to have, good grades and good test scores. And that's usually a limiting factor I find is the ACT or SAT. We're looking for a minimum 600, 600 and 25s. And so that's just a minimum for admissions. It doesn't mean that if you don't have those scores, it's not something that could still be for you. It just might mean that you might need to go to a prep school for a year, which is an option. And they do have some that are paid. You can apply to them. When you apply to, for example, the Air Force Academy, the board can recommend you for a prep school for a year, which is the same thing where you go to school for free and get paid while you're there. And so if it's a test score issue, that's something also that if you're a sophomore or junior, it's not the kind of thing like an IQ test where you show up and you hope that you're smart. You definitely should practice for it as if you're gonna, practice for a tennis match or whatever it might be. You should definitely be practicing for the SAT and ACT. I know this year is a little bit difficult too for some people to get it done, but again, just something to think about. That's usually a limiting factor I find for a lot of students that seem like they'd be great candidates for a service academy. If you didn't do well on those tests, it's going to be hard because when you get to a service academy, you're going to be learning and doing so much that you don't have time. If you're falling behind on the academics, you're not going to get everything else. So the other thing I would say, sorry, losing my train of thought a little bit, is just that when I went to Palm Desert High School, I will say I was the top 10% of my class, but I wasn't the top 10 of my class. So you don't have to be valedictorian in order to get into one of these service academies. But again, you do need to be pretty up there. So I just wanted to make sure that for those of you who are listening who think, oh, that sounds like a really, really cool opportunity, and I would say it is, don't think that if you're not the valedictorian of your class, it doesn't mean that you can't get in. It's just definitely looking for a well-rounded person, but you got to have the academics too. And then what else did I want to add? Can't think of anything else at the moment because we did hit up a lot of good points, but I will say one more thing is that I've heard some people say the military is not for everybody, but I kind of disagree with that statement. There's no one in the military in my family. I was a cheerleader in high school. Not the typical person you would think of to go to the Air Force Academy. But in society, there's rules that have to be followed. And so I don't see why that wouldn't be the kind of thing that everybody or anybody can do going to a military academy. Obviously, there's going to be rules that need to be followed, but I feel like it's that way in life. So I think that if you're a hardworking, committed person and serving your country is something that is appealing to you, I'd say one of the service academies is a great way to go. I think that's all I have for now, unless I forgot something or somebody has a question for me.
No, we'll actually open up the floor to questions, but that's a great point. So here's another thing I always tell students is, like the academies or college or everything that's out there and available for you, sometimes if nobody in your family has ever done something like that, you always think that's for other people. And I tell my students, I know each one, everyone, I know something about you that you don't know. You can do that. It's just a matter of having that support system in place. So you've got two really smart people here who are representing the military service academies. They put their information in the chat. I would write that down and email them and say, hey, I got questions. And I'm sure they'll be more than glad to talk to you about it. So I'd like to do two things, and then I'll be quiet and let the students ask questions. One of them is, Alex, I know you are a co-host. I'm going to put up Congressman Reese's webpage and show them how to navigate to the military service section, academy section. And then Major West, when I'm done with that real quickly, if time permits, if you could really quickly talk about your experiences in the academy life itself. So
Yeah,
this
definitely.
is I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So under the services tab, you'll see a lot of different things that we do. We're always very busy with different staff members, but under should be military academy nominations, you'll actually be able to see this packet for this last nomination cycle that just ended. There's a video welcoming people to our event we did. Every year we do at least one information session that you can attend. It's free. We bring in those from the academies to speak. We try to get one from each academy. This year we were lucky enough to have Captain Davis, who's in charge of the Western District for admissions for West Point. And every year we like to bring in as much input as we can. What a lot of the students I'm starting to learn are downloading last year's packet so they can already see what they're going to need for next year, because there's little that will ever change, except this year with the test scores was beyond belief. With I had to get cancellation notices just so people could prove that they were still trying to take the test. But what you see on this packet will tell you everything you need to submit your packet so you can get ahead of it. My really big recommendation is when you get these letters of recommendation, they can make a big difference. My first year running at it, I didn't really talk much about it. And I've learned even this last year, your letter of recommendation may even come up in your interview, and it can help you or hurt you either way. So if you have a science teacher your sophomore year that absolutely loved you and you did fantastic, well, there's gonna be a lot of science classes at the service academies. That's a good person to keep on your good side. And if you had a math class your junior year that really liked you, but your sophomore year they didn't like you as much, I would really look to that junior professor or teacher and just really keep in touch with them, show them that you're really progressing, and keep them in mind for a letter of recommendation, because also a lot of the things we look at are math classes as well. So be thinking of that. And another letter of rec that I love to recommend is somewhere you were a leader, whether it be you volunteered at Martha's kitchen, whether you volunteered at a different shelter or the Jocelyn Center, which I know is very hard to do right now with COVID, but even be thinking of someone that shows how you were a leader in tough times or how you've been selfless to others, because those are the categories we're really looking for. And don't, it's hard. I know a lot of people have one place they really want to go. I was a different kid. I had a lot of different colleges in mind. Be open to hearing about the other academies, because you never know which one's going to come through for you. And sometimes they can be the best that you end up going somewhere else. I was a transfer in college, so I can just speak from experience. So if you have your heart set on the Navy, that's great, but be open to listening to other topics as well. And that's about all I have on that.
So Alex, real quickly on the screen, if you can see it, and it's big on my screen because I'm using this big giant LFD, so I assume everybody sees what I see, which I know you don't. There's something unique about applying for the academies. Is it a good idea to apply for just one, or is it a good idea to apply for all of them?
I would apply for as many as you can, as many
Yeah.
as you feel comfortable with, because again, you never know the competing class. It's hard to say, like, we always want to think highly of ourselves, but sometimes the competition can be really difficult, and it's good. That's what makes us better. But each academy is going to have a different competition each year, and it's impossible for the student or even myself or Major West to really know. We can kind of look at our applications, but we're kind of limited to seeing the entire scope of the entire country for admissions this year. So someone who may have gotten into the Air Force this year may have had a difficult time a different year, and they ended up at a prep school, and then they reapplied the next year. So I would apply to as many as you can, because you may also get a prep school offer from one of those schools. And then that might be the thing. I have seen a student go to the prep school, come back, absolutely do fantastic on the interview, and they're at the Air Force Academy now for our district. And it was great for them. It was a good fit. And we had someone do that for the Naval Academy as well. So applying for all these doesn't mean that you're going to get in all the academies or any of them, but it may also open up doors to where you could go to a prep school and get yourself even more ready for the next go around as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Major Weston, the little bit of time we have before your little ones come running through that door, if you can, you're not obligated to, but what is Academy life? I mean, what could you expect when you get there and such as that? Because that's fascinating to me to talk to the kids about that.
Yeah, so it's kind of like regular college, except for that, you're going to be wearing a uniform, and there's almost like one of your periods after lunch is actually learning about being in the military, learning about leadership. So sometimes they call it like a leadership laboratory, but it's almost like in addition to going to college, you're going to have regular college classes, but you're going to go there in uniform. One day a week, you're going to be actually in formation marching to lunch. And then usually after lunch is when you're going to get to learn more about leadership and about the military. So it's definitely a neat experience, because there's going to be, about I'm speaking more for the Air Force Academy, but they're all similar. There's going to be about 4,000 cadets who are all there with you with the same ideas and the same motivations. And so it's pretty cool to see how everyone forms together as a team and helps each other grow. As far as like daily life, it's kind of what you'd expect. Your first year there, you're kind of like the bottom of the totem pole, and you're having to, wake up earlier and maybe take out the upperclassmen's trash and, recite knowledge and that kind of thing. You'll go to breakfast, go to your classes, go to lunch. And then it's also interesting that everybody heads down to the gym after lunch, whether you're going to do an intercollegiate sports team or you're going to do intramurals. Everybody participates in that too. So obviously a high athletic atmosphere as well. And then you go back to the dorms, and there's some time that you hang out, but when you're hanging out, you're usually studying. So usually after dinner, you're going back to your room and you're actually doing homework and studying until you go to bed at night. And it kind of sounds like a lot of work, and like maybe doesn't sound that much fun, but you manage to have fun while you're there. And the friendships that you make and the different, kind of spirit missions or fun things you might do. And then of course, it's always fun to watch the different sports teams for their actual games as well. And then, sorry, I don't really have anything planned, so I keep losing my train of thought. But life is actually, while it's hard, it is enjoyable, and you definitely build some strong friendships. And I think that I wouldn't have learned half as much at regular college as I did being in an atmosphere where everybody else is so focused on academics as well. So does that answer the question? I forget where I started.
No, that's great. And so just a piece of trivia for me here. It seems to me like 10, 15 years ago, I don't know how long we've had female fighter pilots, but there was a study done, and what we found out is that females make better pilots than males because they have better hand and eye coordination. And I tell my cadets that, so this is my chance to validate that. So I either stop telling them that, or I feel totally vindicated, and I could tell them that for the rest of the time until I retire. Does that sound right?
I don't know, but another thing that I got to do when I was a cadet is I got to go in the backseat of an F-16, and I thought I wanted to be a pilot until I went in the back of the F-16, and I thought, man, that was really cool, but it wasn't the coolest thing ever, which everyone kind of says if you're not like so hyped up about it after you get in the back of an F-16, maybe that's not the career path for you. So while I thought it was fun, I didn't think it was the coolest thing I'd ever done. And so I ended up working in finance. Obviously, I have friends who are female pilots, but my husband seems to do really well as a pilot because he doesn't let anything get him riled up. He's very relaxed and very chilled out. So when something goes wrong, he can just go through his checklist. He doesn't get too worked up, and so he seems to do well.
That's pretty cool. So you could have had that choice: fly for FedEx or work for Goldman Sachs. So that's two excellent choices there. Wow. What I'd like to do, I know we don't have a lot of folks on here, but we can open it up for questions and answers. These two have to go real quickly, and so I don't want to take up too much of their time. But if you have questions, now is a good time to either put it in the chat and I'll read it out and they can answer it, or if you want to possibly unmute and ask them, they'll be glad to answer your questions. So do we have any questions on the military service academies, the packets, what they are, where they're at, anything?
While people are thinking, I'm going to add one more thing, and it kind of leads into the next segment on enlistments, paying for college as well. But there is an option too, once you are enlisted, to apply to a service academy still. And originally, the prep school was made for those who are enlisted to kind of get 1 year to get back into the college atmosphere before going to the academy. And still about 25%, I think it is, of people who go to the prep school are coming from enlistment. And when you apply, when you're enlisted, you still would turn in your SAT or ACT scores, but they don't quite count the same. So it's just something, if you're on the borderline, you apply to the service academy, you don't get in, you decide to enlist, it still doesn't mean that you can't one day attend a service academy or be commissioned as an officer through enlistment.
Okay, thank you. So I'm sorry, folks, I'm on campus right now, just a quick story. So I'm on campus and I just heard an all call and I think I'm going to get locked in here. So Mary, you may have to come rescue me later on or bring me food and shove me a sandwich through the gate or something like that. It'll be like a...
I'll send an assistant principal I know to unlock the door for you.
Okay, well, I hate to get Rich out of bed. He's probably in his jammies, but okay, folks, any questions? This is a great time. So I've seen Andrea wants to know if you want to get into the medical field, but still want to be part of the military, or would you take different classes? So I'm not quite sure.
If you're interested in becoming like a doctor or different kinds of medical, there is actually a lot of connection between the service academies and that. There's the option of when you graduate to immediately go into like a medical school. I've seen a few different cadets do this. So their 5-year service technically doesn't start yet. They do medical through the Army, Navy, or Air Force. I've seen it for all three actually there. I haven't seen anything about masters per se, but I do know that I've seen cadets go get their PhD, like as soon as they graduate, they start the next one and then they do their service after in whatever medical field that they've done. They'll be on a ship, or they'll be, there's many different ways that they can serve off their 5 years as a medical doctor as well.
Okay. Andrea, did we answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. And there are, so the military academies are one way to get the degree and then move on to study in the field of medicine. There are ways to enlist and take classes while you're on active duty. You could do ROTC and go to, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, and go to a school and do your 4 years of undergrad, then go to medical school. And they're absolutely right. So a quick story, when I was at UC Riverside, is I had a good friend when I was going through the MBA program. Did not look like, and I'm sure everybody here will tell you, there is no atypical military looking person out there, but he did not look like somebody who'd go in the military. And I went through 2 years of MBA work with him. And then one day, his name was Micaiah, and he says, oh, I said, what are you going to do when you graduate? And he's like, I'm going to the Marine Corps. I'm like, what? And he ended up, well, because the Marine Corps was going to pay for him to go to law school. And he ended up going to law school, and they paid for 2 years after his graduate work, as a matter of fact. So it was pretty cool. And I know that's what the different services offer to you also. So I've got another question.
I know I said I wasn't going to talk, but I'm a lot older than you guys, but my husband's entire bachelor's degree was paid for in an ROTC scholarship. He was sent to the Air Force Academy, the Air Force Institute of Technology at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where all he did was go to school and get his master's. And then the Air Force sent him to Ohio State University to do his doctoral work, all paid for by the government.
Okay, Mary, that's it. You're done talking.
I'm
after this.
done, I
I'm
promise.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So, Azul asked, I would like to serve in the military, but I like to do it slowly, if that makes any sense, because I am honestly scared. There's no one person here, either at military academy or anything, but I'm sure any one of us could talk to the fear factor in the military. And the military knows that. In fact, they look for that, and the whole idea is to get you over that fear. And does anybody want to speak to that? Anybody feel brave enough to tackle that?
Yeah, so I'm Sergeant Kaneda over here in Air Force recruiting, and I actually was talking to an applicant early this morning. Same exact principle about having the fear. And I always try to tell them, it doesn't matter if you're joining the Air Force today or you're joining 10 years from now, you're going to have the same exact fear of the unknown, going to a whole nother state, going to a whole nother area, going to an area away from home where you don't know anybody. And honestly, if you're not afraid, then there's something wrong with you, because everyone's going to be afraid. But they always say pressure bursts pipes. And when you sit there and or makes diamonds, however you like to state your statements. So going through some different times, challenging yourself will obviously make you become a way better person. So don't be afraid for the challenge. Just be, ready to accept it and move forward.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also add that people are our military's greatest assets. So obviously, people aren't considered an expendable whatever. It's the opposite. You're going to be taken care of, I'd say, especially graduating high school and going off on your own for the first time. You're going to be in a lot better shape in a military unit where there's people, there's a rank structure. People are there to look out for you, not to do everything for you, but to look out for you and to make sure you're not coming to work, smelly because you don't know how to do laundry, or, that you're figuring out how to feed yourself, and you're not going to be left completely to fend for yourself, but rather, someone's going to make sure that you can do things for yourself, and they're not just going to leave you hanging. So people are our greatest asset. So don't think that maybe what you've seen like in a war movie is what you're getting yourself into necessarily. It doesn't mean that you should expect to sit behind a desk and we're wearing a military uniform for a reason, but it's not the kind of thing that you necessarily need to be.
Last thing, just to the major's point, is exactly that. Is you're going to receive a ton of different training from the second that you decide to enlist in any branch of service, designed to take that fear factor. And we can never get rid of it, but to teach you how to deal with it, teach you how to overcome it, and actually use it to your advantage. There is a lot of stuff that goes into it. So there's definitely a lot of information out there that you should receive and look into it. Don't let fear control you, but definitely use it to help you understand what you're getting yourself into as well.
Great. And Azul, I will tell you, so yeah, fear is natural, and there's a lot of healthy fear out there too. Trust me, it keeps you alive in different situations. But I can tell you that one of the best ways to become an excellent person is to surround yourself with other excellent people. And there is no better place to do that than in the military. You will be around people that will challenge you and they will push you. And I can tell you, I've got 3 combat tours under my belt, and I don't remember being afraid. I'm just being honest with you, not because there weren't things to be afraid of, but because I know I was surrounded by people who were, the best of the best. And I knew that I wasn't just me, we were part of a team. And we don't just say that to say that, and it's not a motto we slap on a recruiting slogan. It's the truth. And these people are taking their time tonight to be here for you. So you're never going to be on your own. And there's always that little bit of fear you're going to have, but I promise you, there's always people there that got your back. Okay, do we have any other questions? Okay, we lost Alex, which I know he had to run. Major West, are you hanging in there? Nothing, no pounding on the door yet?
No, yeah, I was thinking I'll stay on until everyone runs in and starts screaming.
Okay, if I see flames in the background, I'll let you go. Okay, so we're going to transition into, so having said that, if there are no more questions, so that's the military service academies. That is a great, I get excited, and I often do, and I tell all my students, I say, you know what, I get excited for you. I wish I could be a high school senior right now and have any one of these opportunities available to me. They're just phenomenal. And it doesn't really matter which way you get in. Just get in and serve and be with, the best of the best, as I say. The Military Service Academies is one. That's basically a 4-year college, but there is a military flavor to it. The second way is ROTC. So Sergeant Dever, I'm going to say a bunch of things, and you're going to come on and say, you know what, he was completely wrong, and here's why. So ROTC is basically, think about high school. You're in an ROTC or a JROTC or a Cadet Corps program. And like my cadets here, one of their classes is my Cadet Corps program. And they come in here and we have military classes and they go take their other classes. And that's very much what ROTC is in college. Now, Sergeant Dever, I didn't talk about this last time. My understanding is I've got a friend that teaches at UCLA, is that there's a 4-year scholarship, but you can also do ROTC not under a scholarship, but still be part of ROTC and then receive a commission in the United States military. So having said that, that's okay. But having said that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to let somebody who knows more than I do talk, which is pretty much everybody on this Zoom meeting right now. So Sergeant Dever, you want to talk about ROTC?
Well, I'll just talk to the point that you just made, sir. There's absolutely opportunity 2 ways, right? The NRTC scholarship through the Marine Corps Navy. That's the Marine Navy scholarship. Or you do have the option if you were attending a university that has an ROTC program. You can definitely attend and take part of the ROTC program. Once upon receiving your commission, you would go through OCS. The main difference between those two, and the big thing that I would talk about, is when you receive the NROTC scholarship from the Marine Corps or the Navy, where you'll go is you'll attend the school. You should, when you're applying for the scholarship itself, already have a school in mind that has an NROTC program associated with it. So UCLA is a perfect example. UCLA has a very good program. So if you would want to apply for the scholarship, you would apply to go to that school, you get accepted, and you take part of their program. Now, with you receiving the scholarship, every summer you're going to go through a different part of training. So the first part of the first summer, your freshman year, sophomore year, you'll attend a naval traditions course over the summer. So they'll give you all of the Navy traditions that we adhere to and everything like that. After that summer, you come back, and if you applied for the Marine scholarship and you decided to stick with the Marine Corps side of it, you would continue on the Marine Corps pathway. If you came in under the Navy or came in
Okay, Sergeant Dever, you locked up on us. I know last time you had some connections issues, so I'm going to pretend like I can hear him, and no, I'm just kidding. So Sergeant Dever, if you can hear me, you're locked up. Your screen is frozen, and I know last time you dropped off and came back to us. So there must be the curse of ROTC, because the same thing happened when you mentioned the words ROTC, your screen froze. So we got to find a code word for ROTC, but. Okay, so he dropped off. So does anybody else have anything they want to chime in with ROTC? Because I could talk a little bit to it, and I'm going to put something on the screen here as soon as I can find it. Okay, while we're waiting to see if Sergeant Dever makes it back to us, I'm going to put up here, and I'll put this link in the chat here soon, but I did put a link to today's military. So I'd suggest, in fact, I'll walk you through that. I'd suggest that you grab this link, and everything in here that I'm going to show you comes from the homepage on today's military. So one of the things they talk about is ROTC programs. So just so you know, ROTC is the Reserve Officer Training Corps, and there's a long story about how it came about, and it was just another pathway for commissioned officers. So there was a time where the only way to become a commissioned officer in the military was through one of the United States military academies. And then eventually what we realized is that we needed a different way to refresh the officer corps, and so they came up with ROTC, and now we have OCS also, which is if you're already serving. So this tells you a little bit about it, but it's a college program offered at more than 1,700 colleges, right, in universities across the United States. prepares young adults to become officers of the United States military. Now, in exchange for the paid college education and a guaranteed post-college career, participants or cadets commit to serve in the military after graduation. Each service branch has its own take on ROTC. So there's a few links here you can see about Army and Navy and Marine Corps, and then Air Force ROTC. So it'll give you the specifics on those branches. Then it's got a little bit about this gentleman here. So there's a story to be told there, right? And then there's a little bit of verbiage about each of these. It tells you a little bit about Army ROTC. And then, of course, there's always a multitude of links on these web pages. A little bit about the Navy and Marine Corps ROTC, right? And then a little bit about the Air Force ROTC. So what Sergeant Dever is offering is the NROTC, or the Navy Reserve Officer Training Course Corps Scholarship. But again, there are also other pathways besides just the Navy. Okay, and then down at the bottom of this, by the way, there is paying for college, and there's different venues for you there also. So as long as I'm here until we get Sergeant Dever back, or do we have him? Now, while I'm here, let me go to the Today's Military homepage, and that is a great place to start. So again, I will put this in the chat for you, but this is where you'll find a lot of information about the military. And this is probably one of the best web pages I've seen for user-friendly information about the military. And in fact, if you are one of these folks who got to sell it to mom and dad, there's even a section for parents right here. Right? Give me a second. I have to take on Sergeant Dever's phone call. Hey, Sergeant Dever.
Hey, sir. I'm
No worries. Let me let Kim know and she'll let you. Thank you. Okay, can we have somebody, Sergeant Dever's there waiting to get in. Somebody just needs to admit him if we could. He says it says waiting for a host to admit.
I'm in here, sir. Sorry about that. I guess
Awesome.
I guess it didn't like me.
No, well, I was joking because the last time you said the word or letters ROTC, it kicked you off. So don't say
See, that's what it
ROTC
is.
again. Yeah, just come up with a code word. I was showing them on Today's Military webpage though. There's it talks about ROTC programs, and then it goes into specifics about the different ROTC programs. So I'll let you continue where you left off.
Yeah, well, to be honest, so I'll do my best to remember where I left off. But essentially, your junior and senior year, that's where I was. It'll send you to a 6-week OCS course, which is Officer Candidate School for us. You'll come back, you'll finish your senior year out, and once you graduate from your senior year, you'll be commissioned in the Marine Corps as an officer with 4 years of cadet NROTC under your belt. And truly understanding how the ins and outs of how the Marine Corps is supposed to operate and everything like that. Biggest thing with the ROTC scholarship is it's viewed as such as $180,000 blanket check to go anywhere you want to go that has an ROTC program, or even some schools that don't maybe have a crosstown affiliate. So that way you can continue your education, get the military experience that you're looking for, but really focus on getting your degree and commissioning into the military.
Awesome. And Sergeant Dever, I can imagine, I can already see, because I was just reading it on that web page for ROTC on Today's Military. I can see that there may be a point of confusion. It's pretty simple to us, but if I'm somebody starting out, so if I want to become a Marine officer using ROTC, I have to do Navy ROTC. That's the whole point of it, right? And I'm sure you said that, but again, it's really important everybody makes that distinction, because they may turn down a Navy ROTC scholarship and not realize what they're turning down. I've seen that happen.
Well, 100%, sir. So because the Marine Corps is the Department of the Navy, we follow under their ROTC scholarship, but it is one and separate. So we go to the same website, the same one that I showed last time. If I could share my screen real fast.
Absolutely.
Let's see if I can do that.
I'm not sure if, let me see if I can
Let me go. Here we go.
There you go. Awesome.
Boom. All right. So if you come here, I'll put the link in the comments here. All you would do is you come into the NROTC scholarship page. As you can tell, enable midshipman here, and we're going to go into apply. as you go through the process, you'll see here, it'll give you the options to get to the gateway. When you're going through the process, the initial process, they'll ask you a simple question: are you applying for the Marines or are you applying for the Navy? Now, this is where you'll have to make your selection to go through the Navy process. But even so, say you came in originally wanting to do the Navy, you got accepted for the Navy ROTC scholarship. You're going through college and you're starting to work with what we call the Devil Dog program in college, the NROTC program that you'll be going through. And you decide at that point, at the end of your freshman year, like, hey, I think I would be a better suit for the Marine Corps. You have that distinction to be able to say, hey, I would like to switch to the Marine Corps and get commissioned into the Marine Corps. That is the added benefit of going through the NROTC program, sir.
Awesome, I appreciate that. Okay, so that was a great overview of ROTC, and there's, I'm sure the students out there will know this, there's still so many questions you can have that you may not think of right now. Again, everybody here has made themselves abundantly available, and there's so much information out there. Again, it's easy to get overwhelmed, and my advice to you is don't become overwhelmed. Don't try to go to a web page and digest everything at one time. Is what I would do, a smart person, what I would call up Sergeant Dever and say, hey, that ROTC thing you were talking about, can we talk about that? And he's going to ask you some very basic questions, because Sergeant Dever, they still have to be basic qualified to enter the military, correct? They have to be physically fit. They have to do all the MEP stuff and screening and all that stuff. It doesn't matter what you want to do, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there would be a series of questions that we'd ask you. You'd have to be able to participate in a physical fitness test, which is a 3-mile run for us, a 3-mile run, a max set of pull-ups, max set of crunches in 2 minutes. There are other screening questions. You do have to be a U.S. citizen. There's just certain things that make you eligible or ineligible for the scholarship itself. And that's definitely something I would be more than happy to sit there and talk to you about. I think Alex said it best before he stepped off. If you're an underclassman, sophomore, junior, and you're in this conversation, it's a perfect topic for you. Even my seniors, there's still time to apply for the scholarship, but this is a great time for you to start looking at it, because there's other things that are going to make you more competitive too. Like if you're a team captain, or if you do volunteer service, all those kind of things that you can still work on right now, that would make you that much more competitive for the program itself.
Outstanding. I know there are a few exceptions, so this surprised me. I thought I knew everything, and I found out that if you play the flute or the trombone, you can go in the band, and you really don't have to do a whole lot of much else besides play the flute or the trombone. Am I right? Just a piece of trivia.
I'm so glad that you said that. Yes, if you are a musician here, please reach out. The Marine Corps is always looking for musicians. The Marine Corps is one of the most prestigious bands in the world. I promise I was trying so hard not to make this about a branch thing, but with the Marine Corps reaching so worldwide, we're the only band that plays for the president. We have our Commandant's Own, a very, very prestigious band. So if you'd like to continue your musical career, please reach out.
Outstanding. I sure do appreciate that. So Sergeant Dever has put his contact information in the chat. And what I like to do now is open it up to questions about, it can be Marine specific, it can be Navy ROTC or ROTC specific. So if you got questions, you can either unmute and ask, or you can put it in the chat. So I'll pause right there and see if we have any questions. Okay, I see Sergeant Dever's also put the scholarship link in the chat. Guys, capture this, because once we end the session, of course, it's gone. But if nothing else, the phone call, give him a phone call and he can shoot you an email. So while we're waiting, I did want to put back up on the screen as I started talking about it. So one of the things I find with the students here at Indio High School and with my cadets is trying to sell the idea of going in the military to your parents. So I can tell you this, I watched my dad cry 2 times in my life. Once when his dad passed away, and the second time when I told him I joined the military, because I'd never been away from home. We were a really close family. So I sure wish that somebody had said, hey, you know what, you probably want to talk to your dad before you enlist. And I got to be honest with you, I didn't do that. I went down the enlistment and I said, hey, Dad, when do you leave? Next week. And it was that fast. So make sure you have those conversations with your parents. I know both of our recruiters that are on right now are probably experts at talking to parents, because I can imagine they get phone calls from parents like, hey, what are you doing to my kids? This is a great place to start. There's information on today's military, which again was in the chat about information for parents. And this has what to expect. It's stories from military parents and support for parents. So we know that everybody wants you guys to go out and do great things in this world, but it's hard to let go also. And I know if it's hard for me to let go of students and cadets, it's hard for parents to let go of you as parents. Okay, so one last time, do we have any questions? So somebody says, Aiden wants to know, where will I be based and can I choose where I want to go? So that's a good transition. And you know what? I totally did not say the magic word when we transitioned last time, so I'm going to do it this time. But before we transition into enlisting straight out of high school, does anybody want to tackle that question?
I mean, I can definitely talk to it. So there's a bunch of different enlistment options, which I'm sure we're about to go over in our next section. So to answer that question is kind of twofold, right? There's opportunity for you to go active duty, which gives us a little bit of a different answer to that question. Whereas if we go to reserves, it's very specific. If you're coming into the military to be a reservist, you pick exactly what, for the Marine Corps at least, you pick exactly what MOS you're going to do. Military occupational specialty, it's just a real fancy way of saying what your job is, or what job you're going to do and where you'll be stationed, because we have to keep you in the geographic location of where you'll be closest to that reserve unit is. Active duty is a different beast to tackle, and that's something that I mean, if I have time right now, sir, I'll go over, or do you want me to wait until we move to the next section?
If it's fresh in your mind, it might be a good idea just to go ahead and put it out there now.
Okay, so with active duty, coming in off of enlistments, whenever you come into, you say you enlist straight into active duty right out of high school, you'll go through your initial active duty training timeline, which will for Marine Corps will be through recruit training, MCT, which is a follow-on school after you complete boot camp. It's a 1 month. It's a 1 month course, and you go to your military occupational specialty school. After that, the way that we do it is based off of geographic location. So if you wanted to stay on the West Coast, you would say West Coast, East Coast, or overseas, because we have a few bases overseas. That'll be where you can pick your geographic location, but where exactly your station will be up into the needs of the Marine Corps and where your unit is stationed out of. There's a lot that kind of goes into it, but that's the quick down and dirty about how that works. And I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, Aiden, did that answer your question? If not, don't be afraid to say so. And while I'm waiting for your answer, he says, yes, it did. So while I'm waiting for your answer, so when I was young, I didn't know a whole lot, and now I'm older and don't know a whole lot, was when I went to MEPS, the guy says, where do you want to go? And I'm like, I don't know, where can I go? I didn't even think about that. And he says, well, you know, we got Korea. And I said, okay. And I didn't know what I was in for, but I spent 12 months as my first enlistment, or my first duty station in Korea. And it was one of the best moves I made, getting out of the United States, getting overseas, but it was also very lonely. And that's an example, again, of trying to sell that to your parents, because 3 months or 4 months into your service, they might ship you halfway around the world and your parents are like, hey, where'd my kid go? Okay. Aiden, you're very welcome. And if you got other questions, again, feel free to put it in the chat or on mute. So what I like to do is transition now into another options available to you, although there are a lot of caveats to this, as we say in the military. It's tricky. There's something called the ASVAB, which I'll save to the end. So we're going to transition, and Sergeant Kaneda, if you are prepared, and what I'll do real quickly, this is the worst title for a study guide that you could ever get. Anything that has 4 dummies is sounds horrible. But this was given to me by the Army recruiter, and this is something that's available. I actually put it last time in the chat. I don't know if it actually came through or not. The recruiters can also recommend different study guides, but there are study guides out there study for the ASVAB. So while Sergeant Kaneda is presenting, what I'll do is I'll find the page on here that has the 9 sections of the ASVAB. And if we have time at the end, we can discuss that. And both of our recruiters can give us some insight into the ASVAB and possibly even MEPS. There is another thing, and I keep saying one more thing. I'm one of those one more things people. This was shared with me. This is kind of like a glide path to get in the military. So this is from the Air Force recruiters. They said, hey, here's 8 steps to your future. And this is pretty good. I like this. There's an initial interview. There's the ASVAB. There's a case file review, making sure you got all your documentation. You got to go to MEPS and do the physical. And that's one of the most, I won't go into details here because it's not very pleasant, but it's a very thorough physical from head to toe. And I mean from head to toe. There's something called the delayed entry program. Then there's basic training. This is geared towards the Air Force, of course. There's the basic part, and then there's your technical training, which is your job specific training. And then eventually you go off to your first duty assignment. So Sergeant Kaneda, without further ado, I know you're like, would you stop talking and let me talk? And that's exactly what I'm going to do right now.
All right. Well, thanks for having me first and foremost, and also thanks everyone who's in the chat that's ready to learn some things about the Air Force. So that 8 steps to the future is something we actually use, and it's kind of coming into an office. You don't really know what the Air Force is. You sit, and I know when I thought I come to the Air Force, I thought behind the walls there was people getting yelled at, shooting guns, and just working 24/7. I didn't know it was behind the walls. We have everything from bowling alleys, movie theaters, shopping centers, malls. It's just like a little city behind the walls, and we take care of ourselves and everyone else that's within it. So having the 8 steps to the future kind of breaks down the process and what it takes to actually join and get into the Air Force. Initially, you would think when you come to the office, everyone gets a little bit afraid because you think you're coming in and you're going to ship off and leave that same exact day. And that's just not the case. It usually goes from if you're the most perfectest person, you live life in a bubble, you've never been hurt, you're the smartest person on earth, you never went to the doctor for anything. Even with that being said, you would still take about, from the day you come to the office to the day you ship out, 3 to 4 months at a minimum is as long as it takes you to join the Air Force. There's certain things you have to get over. First, getting a good ASVAB score, which is basically going to teach you, it's kind of like an SAT for the Air Force, where it's going to break down the certain job qualifications that you'll get based off of the scores. And then we'll go over and see what type of scores you actually have. Then you have to get a physical done, where you'll go to the MEPS, which is down in San Diego, where you'll get everything done from your vision, your height, lifting weights, depth perception, color vision. And each individual job has certain requirements that it needs for each job, not just your ASVAB score. But for instance, if you don't have a driver's license, you can't be a cop because you can't drive a cop car. You can't work in a hospital because you can't drive an ambulance if you don't have a driver's license. So going down through each individual part of joining the Air Force and getting your qualifications is how you actually figure out what job you're going to get within this branch. Joining the branches, each branch has its pros and cons. Nothing is perfect. I always like to say it's kind of like going to college isn't for everybody. Having a kid's not for everybody. Being married, living somewhere else. Everyone has their own path in life. It's up to you guys to figure out what that path is. And now as, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, when you get to those ages, even 17, you start making those choices and making decisions on what your life and what you want it to be. The ASVAB for Dummies is something that works. I recommend the Kaplan one. The reason for that is I've seen greater success using the Kaplan versus the ASVAB for Dummies. Like I said, it's just a preference, but I've seen a lot of people who've actually used the ASVAB for Dummies. They haven't scored as well as the people I've seen with Kaplan, but that may actually just come down to how much time you're taking into studying and how well you're actually retaining the information. So I always say, take the time with yourself, really study if you want. It's one book that can change the rest of your life. And just one thing, I can't share my screen because I'm using my cell phone versus my computer. But I always like to show this to people. Can you guys see that? It may be a little bit difficult to see, but basically it's a picture of a girl with a bunch of different degrees on there. What do you want to be when you go to high school or when you go to college? There's so many options. And as a 17, 18-year-old, you just don't know, and you quickly jump into something. And then what ends up happening is 27% of people actually get a college degree, but then they don't even use that degree for their actual regular day-to-day job. So I feel like taking your time, figuring out what you want to do and getting some free schooling with military tuition assistance is something that actually helps out. And that's one of the biggest keys to almost all branches of service, not just particularly the Air Force. Every branch has tuition assistance where you don't have to worry about, getting college loans. We get $4,500 each year to be able to go in person or online and basically knock out a bunch of classes. This is for every branch, so it's not in particular. So I'm not trying to, bash on any Army Marines. We got an Army Marine guy in here. So let's give credit where it's due. Everyone has this type of assistance to figure out what you want to do. One thing that does stick out for the Air Force, though, is we are accredited where when you're going through your technical training, learning your job, you're actually going to get credits for it. So if your job is a chef, you're going to get a degree or credits towards a degree to become a chef. I have a degree for criminal justice because I went to that one. And I also have a degree through nursing because the Air Force pays or it's accredited as you're learning how to do your job. So now you do that along with the tuition assistance. And I always like to wrap it up with this is one of my best friend. He actually joined the military 5 years after me. This is his Instagram post. And he used the military tuition assistance, 100% paid for it, to get his master's of cybersecurity. And he joined 5 years after me. So that was that fear we were talking about earlier where he wasn't ready to join. But he joined 5 years after me, but he used the knowledge that I had. I passed it on to him. And he was able to use the tuition assistance to complete his degree, 100% paid for through the Air Force. And now he can get out if he so choose to and knock out his degree with that. I would talk about the GI Bill, but I'm gonna leave that to the Marines because we have the same type of thing. And I just knocked out tuition assistance. And I know the Marines, just like us, we have the same type of programs, but I'll let him hit it home because I know we brought it up earlier on. So if you guys have any questions, I'm the only, me and my office partner, I'm replacing Master Sergeant Chance over here in Palm Desert. So if you guys have any questions for the Air Force, just Google Air Force, put your zip code in and it'll pop you right over to us, or go on Google Maps, and we're the only ones in the area all the way to Yucca Valley, over the way to Indio, all around the way. We're the only Air Force recruiters here. So you'll reach one of us and we can definitely help you out, reach your goals and your dreams.
So Tech Sergeant Conita, so that's true. Now each branch, so everybody gets paid the same. Basically, a lot of things, there's a lot of commonalities through the military services. The ASVAB is the ASVAB, and I flashed up on the screen to tease you, I guess. Gentlemen, I'm not sure if you want to chime in on this, but there are 4 of these 9 parts that make up what they call your AFQT, your Armed Forces Qualification Test. And you got to pass those 4. The other ones show your aptitudes and trainability, if you will, for certain jobs within the military. And then each branch takes these and does some interpretation, does their wizardry on them. Gentlemen, do you want to chime in on anything that's on the screen on the ASVAB that piques your interest or you think they should know? Did I get those 4 categories right?
I got one thing that I just found out about the ASVAB not too long ago. I was not aware that the ASVAB is not something that is just for the military. If any of you guys or any students, if you take the ASVAB in school, on the bottom right-hand corner, there's this access code. If you put that in, go through, you can actually see based off of what you answered on the ASVAB, off of your pure answers, what you're naturally good at, what you're naturally gifted at, what you naturally have a liking towards. And it also will show you what colleges, not even military related, what colleges offer these types of degree plans and what jobs you can actually do with them. So it's more of a job aptitude career type of test versus just something for the military. Of course, we use it to determine, instead of you taking SATs and ACTs, we use it as something to get you job qualified. So we have 4 different categories: general, administration, mechanical, and electrical. And that's how we break down what job you qualify for based off of your scores. But it's definitely something, even if you're not interested in the military, you have some friends who may not be interested, still take the ASVAB and then at least figure out, like right now, I've got a degree in sports management because I realized after taking the job aptitude test that I love sports. And I didn't know that there's a bunch of jobs out there, from athletic directors, equipment managers, that there's a bunch of jobs out there just by taking the ASVAB. So even if the military isn't something for you or for one of your friends, still take the test and kind of get some direction in life on what you may be good at without even realizing it.
Outstanding. And Sergeant Dever, did you want to add anything to the ASVAB?
Tech Sergeant said it pretty well. With every branch of service, every one of us interpret the ASVAB a little bit differently, where his 4 sections aren't the same as my 4 sections. It's all a little bit different about which branch and how we I just lost my train of thought. How we decipher each one of those line scores is what we call it, and see what they qualify for. I would say if you're looking for military service, you're looking to get your foot in the door, the first and foremost 4 sections that you have to worry about or arithmetic reasoning, mathematic knowledge, word knowledge, and paragraph comprehension. That'll at least give you the AFQT score that you need to get into the military, because every branch of service looks the same sheet. You have to score a 31 or better to be able to have the basic qualification to get into the military. So those are the 4 sections I would highly recommend you should work on first, and then build from there. But yeah, that's it for the ASVAB, at least, sir, from my side.
And Sergeant Kaneda, I think, so I had put this on my Google Classroom for cadets, and I can put this link in there. Is this the website you were talking about? I know it's a little hard to see on your screen.
That is the website. And there, at this time with COVID, obviously we're not able to go into the schools and kind of teach them, but it's kind of self-explanatory. Play around with it. But if you put your access code in, it's good for 2 years after you take the ASVAB. And you don't need to talk to a military person at all. So you can just go to the ASVAB, get that access score, and then play around in there. And there's a way you can sit there and see, what you're naturally good at just based off of your answers.
Yeah, so it is truly, it's just what it sounds like. The key word in there is aptitude. In other words, what are you good at and what do you have a natural aptitude? What are your talents and what are things that you're interested in doing? And I teach a freshman class here at Indo High School that talks exactly about that. So, and I can promise you some of the best training in the world is in the military. We don't want people like handling weapons and handling ammunition and fixing planes that don't know what they're doing. You got to be a very literate person. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but you got to be dedicated and hardworking also. So let's real quickly, we will open it up to questions, and then we'll do another raffle, and then we'll do a wrap up with anything anybody might want to throw out there. Do we have any questions? This is a good time to ask about general service questions. You got a couple really smart guys here who have been around the block a few times, and this is a really good chance to ask them questions, like questions about physical fitness. I'm sorry
about this. Do you want me to hit up the post 9/11 GI Bill, sir? You feel like we covered it in the beginning? How do you want?
No, that's actually a good one. And so speaking of that, that's in, there's a link I sent out for Futures Magazine, and they have a section in here on the different, and I'll splash it up after you're done, Sergeant Dever. But if you could speak to the post 9/11 GI Bill, that'd be great.
Perfect. Well, Tech's already alluded to the tuition assistance as a huge, excuse me for just a second, sorry. As a huge option for you if you come into the military to be able to pay for college while you're still actively serving, get your degree and really set yourself apart. One of the things I really liked him talking about and showing was him getting qualifications through the military for whatever his job was, whatever the military trained him on, known as our joint service transcripts. As soon as you go to any technical school or any school in the military, you'll be able to transfer those credits into a college. And as they review your joint service transcripts, all of that is preference to say is, well, what happens after I do my time in the military? Maybe I didn't focus on school, or I did some school and need to continue on, get my degree after I separate from the military. Well, that's where the post 9/11 GI Bill comes in. And for those of you that were here and listening to the NRTC scholarship, I really kind of make it similar to that. So what the post 9/11 GI Bill allows you to do is once you separate from the service, you're going to go and apply to whatever institution that you want to go to. For the sake of ease and everything like that, let's just say that you want to go to UCLA, correct? What you would do is you go through the Veterans Department, you would let the school know that you're going to be utilizing the post 9/11 GI Bill. And what that does is it'll pay for your books, it'll pay for your classes, it'll pay the tuition for the school while you're attending. So that way, all of the costs for schools are completely covered for that. But on top of that, so that way you can focus on going to school, getting your degree in the fastest way possible, and not have to worry about external factors. It's also going to give you something called basic allowance for housing. So what it's going to do is going to factor in the cost of living for you to live in LA, close to the campus, and the cost of food and all that kind of stuff. And it's going to give you a stipend each month to help you battle the cost of living in an area such as LA. So that way you're not worried about where your next paycheck's coming from, and you can really focus on getting your degree in the fastest possible way. And that's a big thing about the post 9/11 GI Bill. It's just going to allow you to continue your education and focus on it That way you walk away from the service with a degree and you're highly competitive for any kind of jobs that you want to go out there and pursue.
And so, as always, I'm a little distracted here. So I know there's the Community College of the Air Force, and in today's world, because, and by the way, one of the benefits of virtual learning that you're doing right now as a high school student is when you go in the military, a lot of the courses you'll do virtually because you're downrange or you're working during the daytime, and you go back to your, we don't call them hooches anymore, you go back to your room and there you are on the computer taking computer classes or college courses online. So Sergeant Kaneda, there's something called the Community College of the Air Force. Could you talk real quickly about that?
So the Community College of the Air Force is accredited just like any other Duke or Texas or any type of university. It's accredited. So the classes that you're taking, like once again, if you come to the Air Force as a security forces member, basically a cop, you'll go through training where they're going to teach you how to do hands-on training, how to handcuff, how to shoot guns, throw grenades, all those kinds of things. But then they're also going to teach you the handwritten portion, like how to, write a ticket or how to do investigations, things like that. Or when I was medical, I would do my hands-on portion, starting IVs, drawing blood, things like that. Or my classroom portion, learning how the heart works, learning how the lungs work, things like that. And in the middle of learning all of it, since it's accredited, we're actually gaining credits towards the CCF, which is a Community College of the Air Force. So all those credits that you're learning while you're learning your job, they're going directly to your degree. So when you get to your first duty section, you knock out basically your general education, your math, science, history, social studies, or humanities, and speech. And at that time, most career fields, you already have an associate's degree that you can leave the Air Force with and start promoting your life going forward from there.
Yeah, there's not too many reasons in a 4-year enlistment not to come out with at least a 2-year degree and be postured to continue your education. And I see Sergeant Kaneda put his contact information in the chat. And gentlemen, I'm going to splash up on the screen. I know, Sergeant Dever, you saw this last time. This is right out of Futures Magazine also. And again, I put the link in the chat. And it starts on the left and walks us through about the tuition assistance covered up to 100% of tuition or expenses of courses taken at accredited colleges. They talk about how the federal government provides about $150 billion a year in grants or work study programs and federal loans. I see there the $60K, that's the military has several medical specific financial assistance programs. So if you're interested in medical, there's stuff there for you. And I'm not at all literate on that, so I'm not even going to try to tackle that one. It does talk about the GI Bill benefits, the post 9/11 GI Bill, the loan repayment program, and then finally the college fund program. So gentlemen, is anything you see on the screen spark you to talk about that, or anything you want to add to what we've already talked about on there? If not, it's okay.
I mean, we covered a lot of it with the tuition assistance, the post 9/11 GI Bill. There is options. The loan repayment is a program that when you come in and you enlist, you serve 4 years, and it virtually works like the post 9/11 GI Bill. It's retroactive because you've already attended college, so it'll help you pay off the remainder of your debt. There is also options. On the last session, there was a question is like, what do parents get out of it? And unfortunately, like there's not many benefits that come with their child enlisting and stuff for the pride and all those kind of things. But one of the benefits to you serving as a military member, and especially in the state of California, when you eventually, if you plan to have a family, there's programs for your children. Like if you're a disabled veteran, all Cal states offer a scholarship program for your children. There's definitely added benefits that come along with, especially with education, that continue to serve you and your family.
That's great. And the obvious benefit to parents is you no longer have them eating your food, living in your house, and all that. Because driving your car, they're driving a military Humvee, and the military. By the way, the military has a great driver's training program. It's one of the most thorough programs I've ever seen. I do have a question real quickly. So Isaac, you're asking, is an ASVAB tutor available? Is that what your question is? You mean like an in-person tutor, or do you mean like an online tutor or something in addition to the study guide? Because I know the study guide with 300, 400, 500 pages can be pretty intimidating.
So for the Air Force, we don't have a tutor at all. I don't know for the Marines. We do have practice tests that when you come in, you start studying. We want to make sure you set up a practice test going forward to make sure you're scoring pretty high. And another side note, actually, Sergeant Dolver, I'm going to give you a good kudos for you too. At the beginning, how I said how the Air Force has, or I'm sorry, each person, rather if married or everyone has their own route in life, right? Same thing with joining different branches of service. The Marines may not be for everyone, but neither is the Air Force. But something that you guys do have, granted, the Air Force, we have the community college of the Air Force, but we actually don't have the loan repayment program. So that's something that I would, for you guys in the sense, if you have people come to your office who already have college debt and you want to pay it off, that's something that the Marines definitely does have. They have that we don't have. And that's where I feel like depending on who you are, each person, has your own route. Do you want to get your college paid for, or do you want to come in and get an associate's degree through the CCAF? Each branch has, pros and cons. And I think that's something good the Marines have that the Air Force actually doesn't have.
Yeah, and so the question was refined a little bit. They were talking about an in-person tutor. And then what happens if one of those 4 areas you're not good at, like let's just say the math part. So let's suppose for either of you gentlemen, I'm going to say I'm a young person in high school and I took the ASVAB and I didn't get the score I wanted and I need help with math. What is the best way for me to reach out and get help on that?
Well, there's 2 parts to that question. Unfortunately, just like Tech Sergeant, we don't have a tutor. We're not allowed to direct to that. It's certain morality to that. But that's us personally to coach and mentor. But there's resources that I can recommend always. If anybody reaches out, I have some young men and women that came in here and they reached out and they got tutors. So I have those points of contact. If I get them before the end of the session, I'll definitely put them in the group chat. To answer your point, sir, if I have a young man that came in here and didn't do too hot on the math portion of it, I would always recommend that young man or woman goes to Khan Academy and looks up like pre-algebra and algebra 1, because those are generally the ones that closely associate with those kind of questions. I've found that helps a lot and that's pretty successful. But there's always other resources too. ASVAB for Dummies is a good resource, but there are a million YouTube videos out there, especially from the younger generation that loves to look at YouTube videos. YouTube videos are always very, very good and very helpful. Just make sure that you're looking at the relevant ones. Vocabulary, ASVAB vocabulary. People break down prefixes, suffixes that help you kind of understand the words and verbiage and on the ASVAB. So at least that's what I would recommend, sir.
No, that's great. And I hate to be full of cliches tonight, but I do know that success isn't the person that got it right the first time. Success goes to those people that got it right the last time they tried. And I can tell you from experience that just being a pain in the neck and not giving up gets you a lot of places in life. And so does asking a lot of questions that, normally they used to tell you there's no dumb question. That's true. I'm truly one of these people that if I don't know, I'll ask a ton of questions. That's got me far in life.
Yeah, 100%. I'm glad that you said that, sir. It does. It doesn't matter. Coming here, I bombed the ASVAB the first time I took it. I don't care. There's no shame in that. But you put in the work, and somebody that puts in the work shows heart. And that's exactly what any military branch is looking for. So.
Absolutely. In fact, that's a key component of any military course is figuring out. Part of it is built in as the instructors are looking to figure out who's not going to quit, not who got the high score, who got it right the first time. They're looking to see who's not going to give up, who's going to keep trying. Those are the people we want to send down range when things get hot. So I just love having people that know a lot of stuff. And I'm sure that either Sergeant Kaneda or Staff Sergeant Dever or even our military academy officer will tell you, look, I got a lot more things I could talk about, but you only gave me 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And so that's why it's so important to reach out to these guys and get a conversation started. You cannot be shy. I'm just telling you right now, you can't be. I was that person when I was young, and I look back and I think, man, I would probably, I don't know what I'd be. I'd probably be flying an airplane and working in the White House. I don't know what I'd be doing right now, but I probably wouldn't stand here talking to y'all, but it worked out well for me. But don't be shy, ask questions. So having said that, Does anybody have questions or anything that they think they forgot to mention before that's like really, really important that before we hang up at 6:30, they just got to tell us? Anything? Okay, any more questions? I know we only have 3 or 4 of you on here, but we're taking questions. You can unmute or you can put it in chat. So I'll pause for 1 minute, and then after that, I'm gonna wrap it up. Sergeant Dever looks all poised to answer questions there. He's just like waiting for a question.
I'm
Give me a
ready.
question. Okay, hey Sergeant Dever, what's the distance from here to the sun? I'm just kidding.
Oh, whoa. I thought this is-
You said you
I'll tell
were.
you right now. I know there's a good answer for this.
93 million miles. I know because I used that today with my freshmen. So
Look at that. I'm even learning something out of this.
yeah. Okay. Well,
Hey,
this
one
was,
thing I do like to say to young kids, doesn't matter to Brent Surf, doesn't matter what you're doing. Every single one of us, the Marine, Kim McNulty, even though there's like 5 Kim McNultys, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Stryker, every one of us as a young child had dreams. Doesn't matter what it was, every single one did. And then as you're going through life, you know, things hit you in the face. You might get a bad grade here. You might break up with a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And there's always things that happen. But no matter what, you always heard as a little kid that you can be whatever you want to be when you grow up. That is so true. The older you get, you realize, just like what Lieutenant Colonel was saying, that he might have been an astronaut. You never really know, right? So take these moments in life, no matter if you choose the Marines, the Air Force, you go to college, chase your dreams, whatever it is, because at the end of the day, you're the only person that can stop you from achieving what you want to do.
well, that is an excellent observation. I will tell you, my experience has been the military has been a great equalizer. Is you go in and you don't care about gender or race or background or where these people came from. You're going to work with some of the best that America has. And that's what we have here tonight. So gentlemen, I sure do appreciate your time.